2 points and two signings since last we spoke, with the Royals slowly moving in the right direction. A victory in round two of the Cup will lead us to two well-known names up at Wrexham. And here with you to discuss all this Reading FC nonsense are your regular duo of Ben Thomas and Ross Webber. How are you, bruv? What's going on?
I'm doing well, thank you. Our shirts, I know I talk about our shirts way too much now that we're on YouTube, but
Yeah.
there's a pretty consistent fan base on there now, thank you. Our shirts are nicely, they're complementary colors today. What shirt is it that you've got on there?
This is the official away shirt. I think it's all right. When I
Mm.
first saw it, I was like, it's ghastly. But now,
Yeah.
I think it's all right.
I think it looks like a Ghastly would hang out around that building, like if you were playing Pokemon Go and it was 2016
Exactly.
or whatever. But what color is it? That's my question for you.
Tilehurst Sunset.
Tyler. Okay, cool, cool. It's a Whitley sundown is what's going on here.
It's like, I say at school, I still am at school.
Yeah.
When you used to have like the paint in the palettes?
Like a watercolor sort of thing.
No,
Oh, you mean like a
like
old
from a,
school like art attack, like the
yeah,
man who's got his thing out and he's properly like squeezed
and
acrylic paint onto
exactly
everything.
right. And you have orange,
Okay.
and then you kind of like mix it in with a little bit, and then you
Mm.
wash it out. It's kind of like the remnants of that, I think.
You can never get rid of the blue. Once you've put the little bit of blue in, it's there forever. Yeah. I guess you're still in school. I haven't been back to school for a very long time and I'm missing out on painting time clearly.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just feel like that shirt, like I run into a lot of people who when they wear bibs when we're playing football, there's some people that can't, even they're colorblind, they can't wear certain colors of bibs because they won't be able to see their teammate. And so I just thought it was kind of interesting when this shirt came out. I was like, we're going to have a black and blue versus white and gold dress situation here. Is this shirt orange? Is it brown? Is it Tilehurst sunset? What is it? So we'll leave it to the
Yeah, I
listeners.
don't have an issue with it. I quite like it. I think it's okay.
Mm,
And I have to say thank you to Uncle Voldemar um, for the
indeed.
shirt. It's very, very kind of you. Finally, Sim got his act together and decided that he would appreciate the people that effectively bring in the money for the Tower FM,
Right.
which is
Yeah.
me and Ross and I.
Yeah.
Um,
We're what's commonly referred to as the talent.
yeah, exactly right. With the what do you call him in NFL? The marquee? No, the
The franchise
that's
player.
right,
Yeah,
franchise. Yeah,
yeah,
not
yeah.
marquee,
Hmm.
franchise. So yeah, thank you, Voldemar, for this. Trust me, we're not spending all of the sponsorship money on really frivolous things. We're not.
No.
But I just thought I'd put it out there, really. So
Stupid
thank you for
things,
that.
but not entirely frivolous. Always
Exactly.
stupid things,
We're
though.
yeah, always stupid things that we probably haven't planned for properly, but it still allows us to do this pod and give you the amateur experience that you've come to expect from us, really.
Exactly. Or in Waldemar's case, you've at least come to fund.
Yeah, exactly right. And aside from that, they are very, very good friends of the show. Fantastic to us, always have been. Hopefully, always will be. Thank you to the Amazons who did a secret set, Ross, at the
They
Reading
did.
Festival. At the Reading Festival.
That's pretty cool, actually, isn't it? Well,
Mm.
it's a pretty good one. I know they had Ready Pop, and that's still coming up, right?
13th of September. Tickets are still available from Point
There you
Play.
go. Yeah, but good to have the biggest Reading boys there at the
Well,
original festival as well. Let's call it.
this is it. I mean, you're pretty big if you're doing a secret set at Reading Festival, right?
Hmm.
Surely.
Yeah, I think I remember one year, very many moons ago, when I went to Reading. I think it was Green Day with the secret gig. So
All
yeah,
right, Grandad,
not a
chill
bad
out.
spot to be in. I know. Sometimes I can sound old. Don't worry. Do you kids remember Dookie? Anyway,
Do you remember that in the Simpsons movie when, like, they start the film, don't they? And they go, "We've been playing for like 15 hours, and we just want to talk to you
yeah.
about climate." And they're like, "Ooh,
Boo-hoo,
yeah,
everything,
yeah."
yeah, just immediately.
Um,
Oh man. Well, speaking of The Simpsons, let's revert to our Old Man Yells at Cloud podcast
exactly,
and
yeah,
get on to
exactly
yelling at
right.
clouds.
I couldn't link that to Reading. We've got a few things to yell about, a few things to chat about. Thank you to said Films who haven't already gathered that we're trying to do that, and of course to the Amazons for the soundtrack to the pod. We got two. Well, we could talk about Bolton, but it's what was it, 8 days ago, so we're not going to do that.
Oh yeah.
We're going to talk about Wickham. We're going to talk about Wimbledon. We're going to talk about the two signings that we've had in the time that we did episode 428. This is 429 or for people that enjoy numbers. And we're going to get into it right now. Right, Ross, let's travel back in time to Saturday where we went to Buckinghamshire. It's a horrible ground to get to, Wickham, and it shouldn't be, because door to door, for me, it's about 40 minutes, if that.
Okay.
The
I was
problem
going to say
is
I didn't think it was that far away, but
it's not.
it seems like the only way to get there from my recent drives in that direction have been down roads that are entirely populated by horse boxes, and are about as wide as one of your car doors,
You,
maybe.
you can go that way. You can go
Okay.
that way. But the issue really is if you want to have a few bevies and get on it
Mm.
a bit, the train from Reading is absolutely exhausting. Um,
Okay.
it
Well,
takes
you're
you.
just gonna have to tell your dad that he can't be getting on the
Yeah,
bevies like that
exactly right.
before the games anymore.
Yeah, I
Like,
know.
was that
Yeah,
your dad or your son who was doing the bad influence there?
they're both as bad as each other. I'm the sensible one. So
Right, right. Understood.
yeah,
Understood.
but it's an interesting one, isn't it, Wickham in general? Because there's a lot of people that will go, it's a derby, and I categorically state both in writing in my column, but also now verbally to everybody, it is not a derby. The real
Okay.
derby is next Tuesday against that horrible little lot from Wiltshire, which we'll talk about later on in the pod. But
Yeah.
yeah, not a derby.
Okay.
Um,
Okay. I
what
think
did
formerly of
you?
this parish, Ryan despises Wickham so much because one of his best mates is, a Wickham fan. So I think that's kind of gotten into my head a little bit that my brain just perceives that people from Reading dislike the Wickham football team. And I
Yeah,
think there was the training ground incident, which, with our current
yeah.
owner,
I
which
mean,
also was a funny thing.
I saw someone call it the Coed Classico, which I thought was hilarious.
That's pretty good. Yeah.
I
The
don't have a
classic.
problem with Wickham, to be honest with you. They're kind of in the nicest possible way, a bit nothingy really. Like they've always been okay. I think some of their fans were a bit weird around the kind of the Bearwood takeover that didn't go through and all that kind of stuff. But on the whole, all right bunch. I did wave to Ryan on Saturday. I was right down the front, but he completely ignored me.
Wow, big time, big time. I do like that it's a ground that you can see on the when you're watching the TV. You can actually see the parking lot and all of that kind of stuff, which is just a hill, a
Mm.
grassy hill behind it. You can see people like walking in and everything. It is still my favorite thing about being in League One is seeing these old classic provincial football stadiums. By the way, like I know that a bigger league requires a bigger stadium and everything, but there's just like a little bit more, the romance of football about stadiums like Wickham's. And I'm sure
Mm.
maybe if you go a lot and you've been to that stadium like 10 times, you're like, what on earth are you talking about? But I would just so much rather go there than go to whichever bowl Coventry are playing in
Yeah.
this week. Like it just feels a bit more in tune with the history of football.
Yeah, there is a charm to it. That there is a charm to it. I've been there. I don't know, a lot. Not
Yeah.
far off 10 times, I don't think. But it's an interesting stadium, strange part of the world. But by the by, 2-2,
Mm.
entertaining game for the neutral, I would say. Frustrating from a Reading end point of view, or Reading fan persuasion point of view. 2 points drop for me, really, Ross. They scored against the run of play early on in the first half. I think we did well to get back in the game at that point. Lovely headed goal from Kamara, real like sweet as a chestnut. I think we've scored 4 good goals
Almost
this
from the
week.
edge of the penalty box as well,
Yeah,
which you never ever see that. And we're
right.
talking about the equalizer for Reading here, the Kamara's headed goal. Wing has clipped that from like the halfway line,
Mm.
with enough power so that when it hits Kamara, it's either going in the top corner or Kamara is coming off the field with a concussion. Because he has hit that.
Yeah.
He has really bulleted that. It is a velocity of header that feels more akin to when your 6'8", 250-pound centre back rises and bullets in
Mm.
like a really driven corner. Really impressive.
Really uncharacteristic goal from him, and hopefully it will, it will do his confidence the world of good. Obviously, add it to
He's
his
good
kind
for
of.
this though, isn't he? He does this and he scored again obviously against Wimbledon. He
Mm.
pops up with goals like quite often and often at times when the pressure is growing on him, he'll just suddenly start popping up with goals. And I feel like Kamara has got one of the strangest goal scoring records for Reading. He only scores goals that they just look a bit funny. I don't really know how to describe them other than like
They're not
he seems to
consistent, are they?
no, they're not. They don't feel like consistent ways to score goals, and
Yeah.
yet he does just have a little bit of that sort of street baller. Can just improvise and work with anything about him, Kamara. I mean, he's a bit. We've talked a lot about him, and last year we were like, "What does he do?" And then this year we're kind of like, "But he shouldn't be criticized as much as he's being criticized." He's still in this sort of like weird middle ground, but the things that he does without being like a guy like Joao or Kelvin who have that sort of swagger about them necessarily, he just finds himself having done some very impressive and odd things on the football field
Well, I
every
mean,
month he plays, I feel like.
th- let's take the Wickham game for example with Kamara. So he scored that goal, and
Yeah.
then pretty much straight after Lewis Wing scored an absolute pinger
That's a
of a
lovely
goal.
hit, isn't
Like
it?
it was
It's a
an
lovely hit.
absolute banger.
Can we
Um,
point out as well in that Lewis Wingo that Chirwa's shot, if it wasn't blocked, is 100% going in as
yeah,
well? Because it's going into the exact same part of the net that Wings eventually goes into.
yeah.
And it was like Wings came back to me. He's like, all right, have it right back then, straight where it went. Lovely hit.
Going back to Kamara, so he did that, and then there was he was kind of right in front because I was only about 4 rows from the front on the
Hmm.
furthest right hand side if you're at the back of the stand, if that makes sense, but left if you're
Hmm.
looking at it from the pitch. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
And he went to pass the ball back to Charlie Savage, really routine pass, and it just completely messed it up. And you're thinking, how do you do what you've just done in terms of scoring that goal and then not do? And even Charlie Savage was just looking at him going, "All right, mate, like
Yeah.
pipe down." Do you know what I mean? Like literally, just give me the ball here. So he's in that kind of. You're right. He's in that state of flux between where are we putting him in terms of the ranking of our players. And
Yeah.
he's very, very difficult to place at the moment. I said last week that I thought he was in for far too much criticism, which was unwarranted. And I'm really pleased for him that he's been able to score 2 goals, in this week. So it's a positive step for him moving forward. Obviously, Wing
I
was
think,
was
I think,
pivotal in
sorry,
the game as
can
well.
I apologize. While we're just summing up Kamara, I'll just say one thing about him
Mm.
because I think the thing that you get from him a lot is that he actually completes a decent amount of his passes in the final third. He definitely does make mistakes, but he completes a decent amount of passes in the final third, and he wins a reasonable amount of ground duels. He doesn't win that many aerial duels. He's not particularly tall, man, which again is just why very strange this kind of header that. But what he is quite good at doing is just getting a strong foot onto the ball to like link up a play and then just tapping it outside again for one of the fullback or the eight back inside or something like that. He is just quite two-footed and quite strong with both feet, Kamara. And so just like that little, it's pretty unglamorous, but he is quite good at the occasional little bit of link up play, which is good to see. Anyway, where are
He,
we going with this?
well, no, I mean, I don't know, to be honest now. But what I would say about Kamara as well, just to add to your point,
Mm.
and then we just keep that film. We just keep adding points, and the whole thing becomes like a Kamara festival.
It's the
Um,
Kamara.
he doesn't seem to play with any shackles. He never seems to get annoyed. He never seems to get frustrated. His head never seems to drop.
That's
It's
good.
really
Yeah.
hard to explain, but he's just there, and he reminds me of like a year 11 playing on the playground
Yeah,
or year
yeah.
10.
Actually, You make a really good point. Like he doesn't seem to get bothered. He doesn't really get into the mind games that ever really, from what I remember. Whenever he does get yellows, somewhat consistently, he fouls somewhat consistently, but it always feels like because he's late or something like
He
that
never
coming into a
reacts. He never gives
yeah.
anything back. He doesn't say anything. He's just like, okay, cool.
Yeah, yeah.
Brilliant
Just loves it. Loves the game. Just loves it.
for the love of the game.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so Wickham,
Yep.
2 points dropped.
I would say so. Yeah, I think Reading were the better team in this game, and I think that I think that Reading's issue in this game was not generating shots of a high enough quality, but in terms of actually consistently generating entrances into the final third and pressures on Wickham, I thought this was an improved performance for sure. I was obviously very happy to see Elliott starting this game rather than Liam Fraser. And Liam Fraser has done some good things in a Reading shirt already. We'll talk about one of them later. But I just think for linking up the midfield, and last week I spoke about how frustrating it was that the midfield was so empty. Elliott just does a much better job of sort of like drifting in between lines. Now, I don't want to be too sort of like over the top about him. He lost the ball an awful lot in this game, but he also just creates things, with his movement, and he gets on the ball a lot. He just adds something a little bit different. I think that Savage has an excellent left foot on him, can deliver a good cross. He's not the same person dribbling on the ball as Elliott is, and Elliott's not the same person delivering a cross as Savage is, but they just have something a little bit different that kind of work together. I thought in this game, I thought that Wickham had flashes where when they turned it on, they were a little bit more clinical in the final third than Reading were, and Reading still weren't the best in the final third. So Reading had more shots, but less XG in this game, and so they're basically getting less XG per shot. Their actual opportunities that they were generating were less valuable than Wickham's, and I think that feels somewhat like more like where Reading were towards the end of last season and in the better no hunt run, whereby Reading weren't exceptional at scoring goals, but they were at least able to mostly take control of a game for a decent amount of time, even against decent opposition. We saw the win against Wrexham, for example, in the back half of last season. So overall, I thought this was a pretty good result, and yeah, a little bit disappointing to drop the 2 points. I think, it's tricky because Wickham, I know they've had a poor start to the season, but it's still a good squad. It's still a good manager, and you would expect them to right the ship somewhat as the year goes on. So it's not as easy in inverted fixture as it looks like. And I think Reading gave away too many shots, and that's probably why they were 2-2 was about right, but it does still feel a little bit like points dropped just because of the manner of it, of course.
Yeah, I mean, 15 shots were given up. Wickham had in the game, which
Yeah.
is probably too many. Ironically, defensively, I don't think we were too bad. Despite the 2 goals, and that sounds like a proper Paunovic line. Apart from the 4 goals, we played really well. I'm really, really impressed with Des Williams in that game. I thought he is really starting to find his feet in this team and become a leader. And certainly the amount of communication that he looked like he was giving to the players around him, very, very important. I'm not entirely convinced that we've seen the best of Finley Burns just yet. I
I
think
thought
it's
this was his
interesting.
worst game.
Yeah, it wasn't a good game from him at all, really. Now, whether
Hmm.
or not he needs a break, don't know. Obviously, he got that in the week where he didn't play, and a lot of players got that in the week against Wimbledon. But what is interesting to me is this kind of chopping and changing of the fullbacks. So Ahmed and Jacob were preferred for the game against Wickham. Obviously, there are a lot of players that are in and around that ballpark in terms of positions. And I just feel that one of the things that is problematic, certainly in defence, is that I don't think Noel knows his best four yet. I think it's Des Williams, 100% first name on the team sheet at the moment. I'm just not sure that anyone else really, and I could be highly controversial here, but I just don't think that anyone else has really gone, that's me. Ahmed I really like, but I don't think he's ready, and I don't think he's got enough in him at the moment to play, Saturday, Tuesday. I might be wrong, But that's where I'm at the moment.
No, I think you're right, but I think that this is to a degree, right? We kept, oh my word, a big U.S. Air Force bomber is flying over my house. That's weird. Anyway,
A bomber, a
a
bomber.
bomber. Yeah, yeah. You heard it here first because I live near the American East Coast. So anyway, try not to think about that.
Wow.
So yeah, it's a big one. Anyway, uh, when you ask me about the back four, the thing I'm going to be interested to see is whether No does this same sort of switch often, and that would imply to me that it's more like tactical or like there's something that he's particularly looking for against a certain type of opponent. You know, will he play Ahmed and Jacob together and then play Dorset and Abrafa together in other games? There's depth in this squad now too. I mean, like like you just said, it's not 100% clear, other than Des Williams maybe, who will be in that back four by the end of the season. We signed Matt Ritchie today. You know, another sort of winger who'll be competing with some of the wingers we've already seen and some of the wingers we already had here, and then in like Kelvin. So I think that, I mean, to a degree, this is what you want early in the season is competition for places. And yeah, I think that you may be onto something in that, chopping and changing the back four a decent amount can lead to like some defensive instability. So, in the end of a game when you're trying to defend, that's where you may see that rear its head a little bit. But so far, I don't know necessarily if the fullbacks have been where the biggest defensive issues have been. Unless in terms of stopping the cross, I do think they've had some issues with tracking the cross as they come back
Yeah.
inside. Everyone from Jacob to Ahmed to Abrafa to Dorset has had a struggle with that at some point so far this season. So, but I do think that to a degree, depth is nice for once. And yeah, I think it's funny though because we were talking about the left back position forever as one that we didn't really have an option for, and now we have Ryan. Now we have Dorset if we want to do that. Now we have Jacob who is actually a left back. So yeah, I think it's good to have depth.
Final bit on Wickham. There's no doubt in my mind that the sub of taking off Elliott and Savage, completely destabilised that midfield. And they were able to get after it. He talked about Elliott a little bit earlier with the ball carrying and what he's able to do, but taking both of them off on the 80th minute, I just thought was a crazy move. And when you look at the balance of the game, and obviously you don't know how players feel, but those players have got enough in them to not be tired at that point. And if anything, if you're going to make a change in midfield, it would have been Lewis Wing coming off and maybe
Mm.
sticking Doyle down the middle. But it just, for me, it just destabilised it, and they were able to come through quite easily for that goal that they did score in the end.
That's a good point. It's 66% of the midfield they changed out in one go, and I agree. I wouldn't necessarily you switch maybe Fraser in for wing, but not both at the same time as eights.
No,
Yeah. Sorry, I know you want to move on from Wickham, but I just want to mention Marco Mani because I thought that he was much better in this game. Fun Marco Mani facts from the Wickham game. He both won and lost the most amount of duels in this match, which feels pretty apt, right? In
yeah,
that I think that he was better in this game, and there was still more to come. But something I used to talk about a lot with duels is I used to talk about Harvey Nibbs with them and how you could kind of quantify the sort of like running and like tackling kind of band that Harvey was by looking at the number of duels that he got himself involved in every single game. It was just always higher than the other midfielders. And so, like, Marco Mani getting himself into position to actually contest for the ball more often rather than being off in the middle of no man's land, that's progress, in my opinion. He also had some decent headers on net. And then came very close to scoring at the end when he probably should have tried a little bit harder rather than falling over, in my opinion. But
yeah.
better signs from Marco Mani, I thought, in this game.
I think the problem is that there are, what are we up to now, 12 signings, and we'll talk about the two latest ones in a little bit. But there's a lot of congestion in that team now.
Yeah.
Let's do Wimbledon first. We'll come back to transfers.
Yeah, yeah.
We move on to Wimbledon. No one in the stadium, Ross. And
Really? Were you in the
probably
stadium?
was I there?
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. I love these
Okay.
games. Love these
Well,
games.
then you were there. Don't be so mean to yourself. No one in the
Well,
stadium. Of course, someone was in there.
I mean, yeah, it wasn't. highly anticipated, and there was very few people in there. But whatever. Those that did, I would argue, saw a pretty entertaining game of football. We were definitely under the cosh in the first half. 100%, it was Wimbledon's half, and we went ahead through Liam Fraser, fantastic, like really good strike. And what was great is that he was just like, yeah,
Well,
whatever.
I wasn't sure if that was because of it's funny, you just mentioned the stadium not being very full. And I often feel like when the stadium is, unless it's like COVID mode, when the stadium is pretty empty, it can look a bit weird to go on a big, like,
Yeah,
yeah,
but if
can't
I
it?
scored
Like,
that on the hallowed turf, I'd be in the crowd. I'd be like, come
it,
on.
it moved kind of like like when you see a giant move in TV and it looks like it's moving really slow even though it's actually moving. That's what that shot from Fraser felt like to me. Like it felt like it was moving slow, but actually it was moving very fast. It just traveled a very long way.
You could have literally said anything at that point,
Yeah.
but you chose
Yeah. We
giant.
have a
Why a giant?
just because they move slow, like the what's the name? Do they have the green? Is it the Green Giant in the UK? The guy on the sweet corn? I can't
Yeah, but he's
remember.
not on TV.
Oh, he's not on TV anymore. Okay.
Mm.
All right. I
You
was
could
just
have.
trying to.
So you could have had like a nature program where like a brown bear was in the rivers of Alaska and like the salmon was jumping through its
Is it a
gorge.
brown bear or is it a Tilehurst sundown bear? What
Mm,
kind of
could
bear?
be, could be,
No.
could be.
What kind of
But
bear is
yeah,
it?
okay, I get I get the point. Great goal though, like really, really good goal. And then,
Yeah.
they went straight up the other end and equalised, and it literally sucked the energy out of everything in the stadium. Like people were on a high, the team looked all right, and then that goes in, and we just went into shell shock mode as we have done quite a lot this season when we've conceded. And it took a bit of fiddling around and being patient, I think. But certainly the goal that Kamara scored, I think
Lovely.
was one of our best goals we've scored this season, actually, because Kamari drives it down the middle, sends it across to Andre Garcia, lovely ball in, like
Hmm.
fantastic ball across the face of the goal, and Kamara was there just to kind of tuck it away. And at that point, it sound overconfident, but it didn't look like we were going to lose then because there was confidence and there was fresh legs on the pitch. There'd been a few changes and there was just a real confidence in the team, and we probably should have gone on to score maybe another one, certainly. But positive
Yeah, I
result.
definitely felt that way watching it. And really good again, by the way, to see Garcia with another goal involvement before August is even
Mm.
out. So he's got three now, obviously, in all competitions with two goals and one assist. And again, just like talking about that congestion in certain parts of the field, like there's no need for him to play left back at the moment because we have enough competition there. But then, he's going to face some competition to try and keep a left wing or a right wing spot as well. So I just thought it was good to see, a winger. I think Chirwa has like shown a lot of energy and things like that. But in terms of final product, Garcia is probably the guy who's shown the most so far this season.
I mean, Jeremiah O'Kine Peters was preferred up top. Didn't see a lot of the ball on his, what was he on for, 66 minutes before he was subbed on for Omani. Is this a personnel problem in terms of the strikers that we've got? Or is it just the way that we're playing at the moment in terms of the system, in terms of the build up, in terms of everything? Because, Omani's been, chasing ghosts up top recently.
Sure.
Yeah, he was better against Wickham. Jeremiah didn't really see any of the ball at all, and again was left to kind of just do his own thing up there. Is this a system thing or is this a personnel thing at the moment?
Well, I think. Do you remember kind of, I guess, a year ago, we would talk about Sam Smith in almost like a similar way, like having to run around at the top of the formation and make his own hay for a lot of the game and sort of. I think that can be it can be a lonely world being a striker in modern football, and a lot of the things that you're doing are working with two wingers and you're left really far alone by yourself in the middle of the park. Yeah, I think that I don't think that it's necessarily a Reading No, yeah, no, I do. I think it's kind of like I think even when the team has been singing in the last kind of year or so, the striker has never been, sort of a key part of the mechanisms of the team. I think that Sam Smith was somebody who had a lot of talent and was able to, score some incredible goals, really, in terms of the finishes, the first time finishes and the sort of in the air looped finishes that he was able to pull off. He was really quite impressive, but oftentimes he was snatching at balls randomly sent through by a wing or whatever he could get. So I don't necessarily think that it's not entirely the job of the striker to create everything, but they can get themselves into good positions. And O'Kine Peters did that a little bit in this game, but yeah, it is a bit lonely being Reading striker, and I think it has been for a long time. But I sometimes yeah, I go back and forth on whether that's kind of the reality for modern strikers in a 4-3-3 or a Reading specific thing.
I mean, it brings us nicely to the first signing um, of I say of the week, but since the last time we did an episode of the Tilehurst podcast, of which you'll listen to, episode 429. Welcome, welcome if you just joined.
Welcome in. Yeah,
Um,
30 minutes in.
yeah, Jack Marriott from Wrexham,
Indeed.
30 years old, 3-year deal. Now I'm not ageist. I myself am 40, so little bit of trivia for everybody at home.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That ever comes up in the Reading pub quiz.
exactly. How old is Ben? Yeah, too old.
How old is Ben?
Um, what what do you make of? I mean, he was at Wrexham for a while. 140 appearances, 61 goals in League One.
I was going to say that's in League One though. That's not
Yeah,
with
that's not.
Wrexham.
Yeah, that's not
Yeah,
Wrexham.
yeah,
And then 400 appearances and 120 goals in all competitions. Um,
yeah.
it didn't make 26 appearances last season. It doesn't. Appearances is generous.
Yeah, something like 9 starts from what I remember.
Yeah.
And 6 goals. This is research.
Do you? How do you feel about that signing? I guess is gut response. You see that flash up on your phone. What are you saying about that signing?
First thing I was thinking was I'm going to call this man like Callum Marriott for so long, or something different like the Marriott name. I don't know why, because his name is Jack too. I was just like, it's going to take me a while to learn this lad's name. It won't. I'll get it in a week or so. It's a very different kind of signing to ones that we were making until like a few weeks ago, really. I think that Porty O'Connor maybe was the oldest person who'd come into the team before Des Williams. And sorry if I'm making a mistake there. But over the
You're right.
last couple of weeks, it does appear that Nola and I think that the priorities have shifted in the last few weeks from like squad construction for years to come to sort of more instant return players and players that are expected to be plugged in and make a difference this season and next season, and I think that picking up Jack Marriott for 3 years, you're basically saying to him, all right, we've got the rest of your whatever prime coming down now, obviously, if he's 30. So let's see what you can do in a Reading shirt. I think it'll be an interesting one. He played a lot with Wrexham in the end of their promoted League Two campaign. He did pick up some important goals for Wrexham last season as well, but really started to fall off the team, and about midway through the season, and it was actually Sam Smith's arrival that kind of signaled the end of his Wrexham career. One thing I did like to see was the ownership at Wrexham talking about him as a person and just sort of clearly being happy to see him going on to another good opportunity, and just like not wanting to leave him in a bad situation, acknowledging him as a person being a good dude and things like that. So I think that that's exciting to have someone who may be good for the locker room coming in as well. But yeah, the combination of this one and Ritchie, 35 years old, coming in as well. And Des Williams, 30, what is he, 33, 34, a few weeks ago. That, yeah, it does seem that over the last few weeks, the thinking in the front office has changed from long-term guys who are going to be around for a while to short-term, this season, next season, what can we get out of them?
I mean, leads us on to Matt Ritchie. 2-year deal, 35 years old.
This is so cool for me, by the way. I know I say this in the group chat today, so I apologize. My first job ever was selling programs at Bournemouth. And Matt Ritchie, this was right around the time when Eddie Howe came back to the club. I
Mm.
had one of my first games ever watching Bournemouth was Eddie Howe coming back to the club. And Matt Ritchie, I just remember signing, for them then, and really making a difference to that Bournemouth team all the way back in. I think it must have been like 2011, 2012. So yeah, really, really funny. Signed from Paolo Di Canio's Swindon team, I think, at that time, which
Yeah,
just,
I mean,
what a weird time that was.
he's had a few clubs. 600 senior appearances, Premier League, Championship, League One, Scotland
Yeah.
International. He's
Eddie
been at,
Howe's favorite.
yeah, he's been at Portsmouth, Swindon, Bournemouth, Newcastle as well. He was in a
And
really good
played a lot,
Newcastle team.
by the way. Last
Yeah,
year in the championship, played a lot for a 34-year-old winger.
yeah.
I think he had 39 appearances or something like that, and he started an awful lot of those games as well. So it's not just like, and amusingly, he was actually beating out Paddy Lane for a place in the starting lineup at Portsmouth last season quite a bit. So it's funny, like he's come in, and I've just been talking about like buying older players and however you feel about that, he's not the 35-year-old winger that you might be expecting, and that maybe you expect like a Billy Bowden type, like last season. But no, he started 28 games last year. He played over 2,000 minutes, scored 5 goals. Yeah, quite interesting, really.
I think what I'm sensing from the people that I look at and comments and stuff about these signings. I'm just going to recap them really quickly. So Liam Fraser, 27, Paulie O'Connor, 27, Daniel Kay, 23, Des Williams, 32, Matt Ritchie, 35, Jack Stevens, 27, Paddy Lane, 24, Jack Marriott, 30, Finley Barnes, 22, Armani, 20, Kamari Doyle, 20, Matty Jacob, 24. There doesn't seem to be a strategy to this window. It just seems to be, and as you said, change in tack. It doesn't. I don't feel like they've gone right. We're gonna do this and go in this direction, or we're gonna bring in this profile of player, or we're gonna prioritize free transfers over loans, or whatever. There doesn't seem to be a consistent model. And when you look at the age of our team last season, which was very, very low, very, very young, we're almost changing the complete demographic and the remit of the players that we are bringing in. And I think that's for me, that's kind of an interesting narrative to unpick and look at, because who's made that decision? Has Noel gone, I need more experience? Well, you probably don't need the amount of 30-year-olds that we're bringing in. If you want a bit of experience, you can pepper it around. But are these players expected to come in and be starting in the 11? Are they expected to be squad players on a match day? Are they just there for the bants at training? Like, how does it work? And I think my only concern, and obviously we've got 2 days left of the transfer
Yeah.
window, 3 days left,
Right.
is that there hasn't been a real strategy to this transfer window that we were effectively promised and told was going to happen.
I think what I said a moment ago, like I was definitely like, I think there was some sort of change in tack in like the last few weeks. In that, I think that some of that pressure from the fan base to make signings, and that pressure that just comes naturally from like the season actually starting and feeling like, oh gosh, we got to get people. But if you look at again, like you're talking about there, the makeup of the team last season, it was incredibly young, and most of the players that stuck around are the young ones. You know, it's only really Wing. I'm trying to think. Yeardom is stuck around, obviously, but if we think about who we lost Harley Dean. Well, you know, Des Williams is probably the locker room replacement for him and better on the field too. So that's kind of like one of those places. I think that the Marriott one is interesting. And I think that Ritchie is, you know, a little bit of an interesting one too, because there might have been other spots that you would prioritize right now, in terms of the squad. But I think that for me, what I would say is the stuff that we saw from Porty O'Connor through Paddy Lane, even through Liam Fraser. That maybe not Liam Fraser. That one's where I'm not so sure. But around there, I think those are Brian Carey signings, whereby he's picking up people where he can get a good deal and bring in, you know, a player that will, you know, could make a difference to Reading for a long time. Porty O'Connor, yeah, he's 27, but you know, center, you know, Derek Williams is 32, so he could get 5 years out of Porty O'Connor if he turns out to be a decent player. So I think those were sort of the long term strategy signings. And I liked the makeup of a lot of those. The last week or two to me has felt a bit more like Noel being backed a little bit, you know, and you know, feeling the pressure himself, I'm sure, going out and getting players that he thinks are going to help him. Whether he is right or not is, you know, another question, but I think that's what's going on.
Well, last three signings we've made, combined age of 97.
But you're not going to combine their age on the field, though. Like, they're not going to creak,
Mm,
you know, like down the hall or whatever.
mm.
But yeah, I
I-
take your point. I take your point. It's different. I think it feels a bit odd because it's so different, and we've gone down that sort of highway before of picking up players that maybe were not as good as their reputations preceded them, or had decent, you know, careers to date, but we're past it, and you know, Shania
mm.
Luco or Vidra or whatever. But you also get guys like Jan Kermorgant that show up. It feels like they should be well past their prime, and they just suddenly rediscover a good vein of form. So I think it's really difficult to say in August, but I do think that the first half of the transfer window is a very Brian Carey pick up players who we can go and get and have a good, who are just going to improve the squad. And the second half has been more about No going out and trying to get what he wants. I do also think it's really hard to buy players for a pretty undefined system at the moment too, or like a team where the system doesn't necessarily, or just isn't necessarily the thing that's driving results. I don't know. It's kind of interesting.
Well, as I said, well, by the time you listen to this, it'll be 2 days, two and a bit days left of the transfer window. We will see if anything progresses over those 2 days. Highly unlikely that anyone else will come in before the game against Port Vale, which we'll talk about in a little bit. We're going to move into the mailbag. We had two fairly meaty emails, which is why we didn't ask for contributions this week. So we wanted to get into those. So we're going to do that after this short break. Right, Ross, two things for us to have a little chat about. Let me just get them
Mm.
up. Oliver Rush. Hello, guys. Love the pod.
Hey,
Thank you.
what's up, Oliver?
Question for the mailbag. I know it's still early in the season, but how long do we give Hunt before we start thinking about a change? I know we nicked a point at Bolton, but the performance was poor. And if you wanted a change, who would you like to be appointed?
I
Um,
think this email came in after Bolton, by the way, just to give some context there.
yeah, all right. Who's running this? You or me? Shut up.
Good point. Fair enough.
It did actually. It came in. It came in on Wednesday, the 20th of August, at 22:12.
Yeah. So we got to it 8 days later. Timely.
We're getting. It's it's a growing narrative in the fan base, isn't it? With Noel and kind of where he's at and maybe where his limitations are and where his
Hmm.
skill set lies. What Because we haven't really talked about this off air either. Where are you at the moment with Noel Hunt, and what are your, apart from finishing second, what are your expectations of him in terms of like where he should be going with this team? Because he's had this team
Automatic
assembled for.
promotion. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, no, I think I'm not surprised. It's like a kind of like growing narrative, and I doubt that it will have been quelled necessarily by by the last week. I think that there was a very mixed bag of opinions after the Wickham game. I think. And so I think whenever you have a manager who hasn't necessarily had like a proving like a season or two of proven results, it's always kind of hard to truly say no. Just wait, and it will get better. Because in full men's adult football, we haven't seen that yet from Noel Hunt in his coaching career. So we're kind of like waiting for him to show that now. And so far, after having had the team for what is it, 9 months now, pretty much, I would say that Noel has, been a pretty good firefighter, and now it's kind of like time to show what he can like build. And so far, I don't think we've seen a ton in terms of that building. I think there's been a bit of the thing I've been a little bit frustrated with is the seeming desire to fix footballing problems with transfers. And I may have said this on the last pod as well. But like, not every single issue in the squad can be solved by a transfer. Case in point, we were talking about, earlier, like, is it Reading's system or is it the striker that's causing issues? And we were like, well, even Sam Smith, kind of like we would complain about him not being able to get on the ball enough. So I think that kind of talks to that lack of an ability to create at the moment. It's I would like to be inspired, and at the moment I am not inspired. I would say by anything I've seen
Mm.
necessarily tactically. I think that Noel can hold things together pretty well, and I honestly, like someone pointed out, it's like 4 games unbeaten at the moment, which I guess is true, in all competitions. And there's a couple of wins in there too with the Carabao Cup. But until we get a win and a somewhat convincing one in the league, I don't think the narrative can go anywhere really. And so I think they have to hope it happens against Port Vale this weekend, really. Otherwise,
Has to
Noel's
happen.
really.
Otherwise, I do think he's under pressure for the first time. I
Oh
think,
yeah.
yeah, okay, you can look at the smash and grab against Bolton. Bolton weren't good really. They should have seen the game off and they didn't. And I
Bolton weren't
know,
good, and Reading were atrocious in that Bolton game, by the way. The
yeah.
first half was as bad as it's gotten this season. If the Wickham game was the best performance this season, that Bolton first half was appalling.
Which is
Like,
ironic
not
because for the first
coherent.
10 minutes of that half, first, 10, 15 minutes tops, I didn't think we were too bad. And then it collapsed. And then when you look at the half overall, I agree with you. It was absolute trash. It was really, really bad. And then they just sort of hung on. And got the goal which they didn't deserve. But again, no one with a badge on cares really, do
I
they?
still have no
Um,
idea whether that is a clean. Do you think that was a clean strike from
yeah, I
Garcia, or do
do.
you
Yeah,
think
yeah. I think he's
you
caught
do?
it.
Okay.
Yeah,
I wasn't sure if he's either caught it and accidentally looped it, or he's hit it normally and it's hit the defender's ankle right in front of him. Is what
I
I
tell
think
you,
has
I tell you
happened.
something. When we have scored goals this season, they've been flipping good.
They have been, yeah, they've
You
been a
know,
lot
like
of
when you
fun to
even look at
watch.
that Bolton when you go, oh, yeah, we scored a goal.
This
But
squad.
actually, it was a pretty, like, whether it's
It,
deflected or not, I don't
it
think
was
it
a
was.
pretty funny goal, yeah.
Yeah, it was hilarious. Absolutely hilarious.
It-
And obviously the two against Wickham and the two against Wimbledon this week have been fantastic goals. Absolutely fantastic
yeah,
goals. Um,
yeah. We only saw bangers.
in terms of who, if there was a change, who would you like to be appointed? I'm not going to be like, oh, I can't answer that because it's rude. I genuinely couldn't tell you. I think there is a very big, you know, line of thought around Gareth Ainsworth because of the connections and because of the relationship that's there. Obviously, he's on some ridiculous streak with Gilling at the moment. I think he's like 17 games unbeaten or something, which is
Okay.
I think
including
he's
a
right.
afternoon snooze fest against us in preseason, or is that not
I
included?
don't know if that's included or not, but
No,
you know,
no.
there's a school of thought here. I quite like the Wimbledon manager, to be honest with you. I think the two games I've seen, I've not been, um, I've not been, I say disappointed. That's wrong. I've been, pleasantly surprised at how Wimbledon have set up, and I know they've picked up some good results away from our games this season as well. So there are managers out there. I
It's
just,
hard to pick up a really proven manager. And I think
yeah,
if you look at like what a lot of the big clubs are doing, well, they're doing kind of like what you could, caveat could, argue that Reading were trying to do with Noel Hunt in the Huddersfield, brought in Lee Grant, a man who's never had, the head
yeah,
coach role. Last season, what's the name of the Birmingham guy whose job it was to come in and complain that he didn't have enough resources when he had 35 million spent or whatever? Chris Davies, maybe? I can't
yeah.
remember. Whoever the Birmingham manager was, he was some idiot who had never had a full, like a head job, a coach's job before. Oftentimes this happens now, and I think it is partially because the transfer stuff is run, in the front office as much as it's run by the manager. So they need this sort of split, and I think it's a little bit easier to have authority over a coach when they haven't achieved too much in the game yet. Like they still need the club as much as the club needs them. So yeah, I think that like it's hard to. Well, I mean, like, what kind of name in League One gets people excited? Is this question leading us towards Chris Wilder? Like, what
I'm
is
not
the
sure I
answer?
could stomach that, as an individual. I don't think I could cope with that really. I think he's grossly overrated personally as a manager. And
Yeah,
I don't think it's really crass, isn't it? Talking about a manager that we've already got a manager who a lot of people like and really want to succeed. And I think that my thing is that I really want Noel to succeed. I really want him to do well with this group, and I want us to get up the table as quickly as possible. Obviously, Saturday is the first opportunity to do that, so
yeah.
that's got to be the priority. So I think if and when things get worse than they are now, um, it'd be interesting to see who is available. But I don't know. Do people want to work for Reading
You're not
Football
going to
Club?
run
I'm not
into
sure.
someone who's going to. I don't think there's anyone in League One available who's going to make every Reading fan
Yeah,
excited if that happens, because it's just not. The real hot prospects in terms of managers often get tested in League One, and we don't necessarily know lots about them. And then like if a manager who we know the name of is in League One, like last year, let's say they were Steve Bruce or Nathan Jones. They're guys who have fallen down there, and they're there for a reason at the moment. Like they've had a poor experience in the Championship or something like that.
mm,
So I don't know. It's tricky, Like Nathan Jones obviously was able to come back down and rebuild his reputation with Charlton, and now looks, he's back kind of where his career was 5 years ago, I'd say.
Michael
Um,
Carrick's out of a job.
Michael Carrick, there you go. Okay, sure. Now we're getting to some more realistic names for sure. So, look, I don't. I think I'm with you though. I want to be able to believe in Noel, because there's a lovely sort of regeneration of the club story that could be told. With a former player at the helm of the club. But I would
Mm.
want to see. As I've talked about a lot so far, I'd want to see some sort of tactical improvements over the next few months.
Yeah, I mean, my official thing, I can't get on board with this. Noel Hunt needs to go stuff or being sacked or whatever. Like I think and I hope that there is enough in his locker to be able to get us up the table and work with this group of players that he's got. I agree with you. I think he needs to be more flexible and make some different decisions in games to be able to. Wickham's a classic example of that. So I think he's got time is the short answer, and I would like to see that time utilised really well. And I really like him and I want him to succeed. So that's really the bottom line at the
My
moment.
my question is, will he have the, I don't know what the phrase is, but will he have his moment of change? And I think that the thing that has worked or not worked for the last few Reading managers, in sort of like Paul Ince and Ruben Settlers, has been the Paulins was not willing to change at all for anything. He wasn't
Yeah.
willing to change any of his setup. Whereas Sellers, it took, I know we all feel that it took too long, and it did take too long. But eventually he came to the conclusion that what he was trying to do was not working, and he held his hands up and he changed it. And for me, I haven't seen a change moment from Noel yet. Like, I
Great.
haven't seen a moment where he's like, we've done this well, but we're not doing this well, so we're going to make a change. And I think that when the results get bad, as they have been, that's when you have to see that, and that's when you really learn what he's all about as a manager.
Good question, though, Oliver. Thank you for that. It's a difficult one to
Yeah,
answer, isn't it? But
truly worthy of being called a meaty email.
100%. Yeah, I mean, we've got another one now. But no, thank you for that, Oliver. I really, we really appreciate that. And we like those kind of longer questions to be able to dig into. So hopefully we've kind of answered it whilst also being, sensitive to the situation. It's bizarre, isn't it? Football is has to be one of the only jobs apart from a politician where people publicly
Yeah,
call for you to be sacked or removed from your job. It's a crazy thing when
right.
you think about it, right? You know.
Yeah, yeah, and then they discuss openly in front of you the potential,
Yeah. The
replacements.
replacements.
Like,
Everyone, listen,
imagine you
everyone's
went to
replaceable,
work,
right? Everyone, no one,
right?
nothing's forever. So we, have to be realistic. It's the most fickle game in the world, football. 100% the most
Yeah.
fickle game in the world. Um, Alan Scott. After the first four league games, it appears to me that the league position we find ourselves in could be down to our pre-season preparation. All four teams we played have been much more organised, drilled, and effective as a unit compared to us. We look ragged. Oh no, sorry, I've completely messed up the pronunciation of that. All four teams we played have been much more organised, drilled, and effective as a unit compared to us, and we look ragged. Why is this? What have these teams done that Noel overlooked in pre-season?
Yeah. I think it's a couple of things. I think that it's adjustments, and then it was during preseason. I kind of mentioned this a little bit earlier in the pod. I think there was a little bit too much focus from Noel and the coaching team on solving football problems with transfers and not looking to solve football problems with the actual players that they already had available in the team. I could be wrong about that, but that's just my opinion. I felt like nearly every time Noel spoke during the preseason, there was some sort of talk about, and we hope to get more through the door.
Yeah.
And, like there was always like something going on with that. And I'm just like really of this opinion that you can find other ways to, like, let's say like a player isn't working for you in a certain way, you can still find like a new way to like get them going. Like, I think that Liam Fraser was really good in the sixth spot for Reading, and we've tried him in this sort of like eight thing, and if we just and it hasn't been amazing, and if we just like given up, it's all right, he's not playing anymore because he can't play eight. And it's not how it works. Like, you need to like work out where other players can like see their skills shine. Is Noel Hunt the kind of manager, or is his coaching team the kind of manager that could get Michael Craig playing at right back as well as he did last season? I'm not so sure about that at the moment. So I would like to see a little bit more working with what we have, because I think that what's made us quite impressive over the last few years is taking what we have and squeezing every last drop out of it. And I think there's been a little bit of tendency this summer, understandable tendency, to be like, we finally have resources again, let's use them. Whereas I think we need to just remember at all times what it is that kind of kept us afloat over the last few years. And then the last thing I'll say is adjustments. I think that Noel is not quite the in-game adjustment manager that many other managers at this level are at this time. And so I think you see this quite often, right, where Reading have a reasonable first 10, 15. I think Bolton was the only real game this year where they were just awful. Although you thought they were all right for the first 10 minutes too. But then they'll sort of like go off it for a big stretch for the like 15 to like 35-minute thing, and to a degree that's like, the team maybe not like putting the intensity up quite as high at that point. But I also think that it's a case of like, we get out there, we start doing something, the opposition manager is able to go, he's doing this, go stand over next to him, he's doing this, go stand here when the ball comes in here. and that cuts things out, and then Noel has to adjust again and say, okay, how do I attack this new thing that's happening? And I haven't yet seen Reading be able to properly adjust. Like you talked about how like when they brought on two center mids to play in those 8 spots at the same time, that's not like effectively adjusting to the game. That's sort of like sending out, all right, I mean, energy, here we go, energy. I would like to see some better adjustments in game from the management team. So yeah, I think a little bit of a lack of working directly with what we already had, and a little bit of a lack of in-game adjustments.
Yeah, I think it's interesting to bring out those comments that Noel made, because if I'm a player, and I've done as much as I feel I can after every game, and he's going, still waiting on another player, was doing this, like, there seemed to be over the last few weeks more chat about the players we didn't have than the players we did have.
Every time Marco Mani went out there, right, we were talking about who we're going to replace him with
Yeah, 100%.
after week 1, when we decided after about 135 minutes of football that he was useless.
Yeah.
And to be fair, he didn't play well. But also, it takes a little bit more time than that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you know, with these players, and there's been a gradual stream of, 11, 12 players we've brought in now. In an ideal world, you bring them all in the first week and go, bang, there you go. But other clubs have brought in clusters of signings and integrated them into the team. Yeah, I know we've had injuries, but we don't seem to have done that. It seems to be more of a drip feed approach in terms of like, well, we bring this player in and then we'll bung him in. And there doesn't seem to be a real understanding yet of who his main 11 are. And so there's constant referral to, still looking for this player, still want to get this player in. Is that him playing mind games or putting pressure on the ownership group and the transfer group? Or is that him literally saying, I need more players in terms of what I've already got, and being able to affect games? So I think a lot of these other clubs haven't, from what I can gather, done that. They've just used what they've got there and then. And that comes back to what we said a couple of weeks ago about, it's not really a personnel issue, it's more of a coaching issue and a tactical thing. I don't see a lack of effort from these players, but what I do see is sometimes a lack of understanding about where they should be on the pitch and their roles, and how far they go forward and how far they drop back, and who's chasing who and all this kind of stuff. So, going back to the general theme of this pod is that we, both myself and Ross would like to see some changes from Noel Hunt himself in terms of how he's approaching these games, and balancing out now with the transfer window closing, the consistency in the players that he's using. And starting, and we talked right at the top of the pod about the fullbacks. Like, it's really important that there is a settled team there, and there is a core of players that go, this is what we're doing, and that's how relationships form, right? That's how you get these really positive outcomes on the pitch, like we did last season. So I think there's still a lot to play for from Noel's point of view, and I think it would be good for us, Alan, to start seeing this team sort of outshine other teams organically, rather than sort of chasing games like we have been this season. So yeah, it's a really, really good point. But I would agree that I think the teams we played, possible exception of Bolton really, who were just very, very wasteful, have been all right. They've been okay. I don't think with Wickham, I don't think that effort and that level of quality really reflects where they are in the table. So there's still a lot of games to play for, and yeah, it's not been the start that anybody wanted, but I think, well, I don't think it has to improve. Simple as that. We can't spend all season down there. So yeah,
And what we talk about a lot, the 2012, was it 2011-12 season? That didn't start well.
Yeah.
They didn't really get, coughing into life until sort of late October. So lots of time left to go.
Yeah. We're going to wrap up episode 429 with a very smart preview of Port Vale, who travel down to Berkshire on Saturday, 3:00 kickoff at the Stade d'SCL. Tickets are still available from Point of Source. Go out and get them. Without sounding like Trust Claire, go and get your tickets, because it could be the last home game for a little while with the impending international break, which we may or may not have a game postponed from, but we'll see. We're going to dive into the preview after this very short break. Right, welcome back to the final part of episode 429 of your Tilehurst End podcast. Port Vale, the Valiants, Nicest
Port Vale.
kits going this season. Absolutely delicious. They're an anniversary
Do you
kit.
like do you like their logo? Do you like the fancy Port Vale logo for this season?
What, the PVFC?
Yeah.
Yeah, I love
Yeah,
it.
the little you
It's
like it.
really
Okay. I think
beautiful.
it's pretty good.
I think Puma have done really well with their kits.
Yeah. Yeah. The sorry, not to take it off kits, but the I just want to make sure we don't forget that the John Rudge statue that was a feature of our first
Mm.
season in the Tilehurst End podcast that has now been built. And I know it was a long time ago now, but I just to flag that again. It's nice for them. Nice little club, Port Vale.
Well, we had Mark on, didn't we? Many moons back
Yeah.
from the Port Vale Sports Trust. Lovely guy, Mark. Really, really
Yeah,
nice
yeah.
guy. Fantastic guy. Um,
And they were really
they,
good. Obviously, they were the team that we had the pitch invasion
yeah,
and cancellation of back in the 23-24 season. So yeah, their fans were very pretty gracious, I would say.
they're a proper football club. Proper
Mm,
football club, Port Vale.
yes.
Find themselves in a almost identical position that we are at the moment. They're 22nd in the table. We're 23rd. They're on 2 points, same as us. Only difference being is that they have a -3 goal difference as opposed to -5.
Mm.
Difficult start for Darren Moore's team. Really big fan of Darren Moore. I've always been a really big fan of Darren Moore. We Let's talk about us briefly before we talk about them. This is a game that we have to win, don't we, Russ?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think like we said earlier, the pressure that's building around Noel isn't going to stop until we get a first win of the League One season, and once we have that sort of monkey off our backs, I think that we can start looking at the table and kind of thinking about positions or whatever that Reading fans actually wanted to think about this year. And it's difficult though because obviously Wimbledon are another one of the teams that have been promoted and come up, and they've won 3 games, including a game against us. And so it's tough to really write off anyone, even if they have come up from League Two. But I think Reading just have to, like we were talking about last week, like not care about what the opposition is up to at all in this game, and they really have to play their own brand of football, whatever that may be. They need to go out there and express themselves. And yeah, I think that if this isn't a win, then life could begin getting a little bit uncomfortable for the coaching staff for sure.
They don't score a lot of goals. Lost 2-1 to Rotherham on the opening game of the season. 0-0 against Cardiff, which looks like it's a good result now in terms of where Cardiff are top of the table currently. Beat Blackpool away in the League Cup first round 1-0. Drew 0-0 with Burton in the next league game. Lost to Stevenage 2-1. And then lost to Doncaster in the league last time out 1-0. They did beat Birmingham in the second round of the Cup on Tuesday. They got themselves a plum tie against Arsenal at home, which is going to be
Ah,
really good for the money point of view. Um, I mean, you have to anticipate that when he sets up the team for Saturday, we just go all out and get them. Surely, they've conceded goals. They haven't scored very many. They're obviously struggling for whatever reason at the moment. Do you think that these previews are always hilarious because we've always got to go on what do we think might happen?
yeah,
Well, it's called a preview, obviously.
yeah,
Stupid.
yeah. I was gonna say, yeah,
Um, does Jack Marriott and Matt? I nearly said Lionel Ritchie then. Matt Ritchie
yeah.
go straight in. Do they come straight into the starting 11?
Oh, that's a great question. I think that I think one of them, sure. Like I think that Marco Mani's been better over the last week, but again, just keep that like fire lit underneath them, I guess, and show that the competition is there.
Well, I was going to answer my own question because you've almost got it right because there was a right
Okay,
answer. For
okay,
me, when Amani came on in the week, he looked really lively. His little run diverted the space for Doyle to run
yeah,
into the goal
yeah,
line completely.
hugely
So
important in that run.
right. So actually, are we looking at Omani to be a potential sub that's going to change the course of the game? I personally think that Jack Marriott starts on Saturday. I think he has to start
Yeah.
because we've not had a striker score a goal this season. So
Reading have paid money for a striker too. You know, you don't. I don't think that you pay money to bring a player in and then you don't. You know, try and put them out in your lineup as quickly as possible. I'll be interested to see Ritchie. I think that's less likely.
mm,
You know, just because of it being a little later in the week. But then again, you never know. He's probably been training with the team all week anyway, and
yeah,
just hasn't been announced until Thursday morning. So I think that Garcia is the hot hand right now, and there aren't that many hot hands in the team. So you kind of want to ride that. You know, maybe I mean, doesn't it sound a bit weird to say like Garcia and Kamara when Lane and you know Chirwa or Richie will be available? But again, depth. Good to have selection headaches, I think.
well, my next and final question: midfield three.
Mm. Um, this would be the. I would say, I think the same. I think you start the same midfield three as started against Wickham at the moment. I think the Kamari Doyle again is another sort of bring him on impact player, but I think that he looked really good when he had the opportunity to sort of drift inside. Kamari Doyle on against Wickham, sorry, against Wimbledon.
Yeah, yeah,
So I'd like to see him, you know, able to get into those kinds of positions again at some point during this game, but maybe that's, you know, coming on in the 60th minute or something like that. But yeah, I mean, again, I think it's just good that everyone in the midfield has pressure on them. You know, they have to
mm,
perform, or there is someone behind them who could take their job. But I think that Wickham was better. And so probably continue with the same three, but Doyle now is not far behind at all. And also, you know, the ability of Fraser to play six means that you could move wing up to an eight if you wanted to. So yeah, it's all to play for if you're in this Reading squad right now.
and you have to hope that that ignites them a little bit in terms of getting these results. Now that there is so many players, it's their shirt to lose, isn't it? In terms of starting 11, key areas for me really are who plays at fullback and who plays up front. I think they're the two key areas pre-match that we're going to be looking at. So yeah, all to play for at the Stade de SEL, 3 p.m. kickoff. Let's hope for a win before we go to Wiltshire on Tuesday. Ross, we're later on in the week, but thank you so much for, I don't know saying that because you're there anyway, but
Yeah,
thanks
whatever.
as always for your chat and your bants and your
Thank you. Thank you for
insight.
wearing such a nice, striking, opposite colored shirt to me. Watch on YouTube, fans.
I think I'll
There
wear it.
you
All right.
go.
It's an XL, but it's quite tight. I don't know if that's me or it's the
That's,
shirt. I don't know.
that's a foot. No, don't worry. That's a football shirt for you.
They're
Don't
getting
worry
tight.
about
I
that.
feel like they're getting tighter unless I'm getting bigger. I don't know. It feels a bit.
No, no, an athletic cut. It's just it's seeking. It's a magnet for muscles, mate. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, well, exactly right. Yeah, put the guns away.
Yeah.
Have a lovely weekend. Happy belated birthday to your wife, Kat. Hope she had a wonderful day. Monday, was it? Was it
Right.
Monday?
Oh, that was my anniversary,
Oh, it
not
was
my
your
wife's birth.
anniversary. All right, I do listen.
Yeah, yeah. But thank you.
I
Yeah,
thought it was a birthday. I thought it was a birthday. I read it as birthday.
I was a bit confused. I was like, no, that's December. So
Right. Well,
yeah, no, we'll
cut that bit.
redo that Cat's birthday message.
Yeah, hold
You
on,
know,
hold on.
like
Let me start again. Hold on. And happy anniversary to Ross, who
thank
celebrated
you.
X amount of years marriage to his long-suffering wife, Kat, on Monday. It wasn't her
Yeah.
birthday; it was definitely her anniversary. So yeah, enjoy.
And no one ever thought it wasn't. That's the important thing. No one ever knew. It's like a slip it's a slip up the stairs. Nobody saw it.
Exactly right. Have a really good weekend. Enjoy the game wherever you're watching it.
You as well,
Ross,
mate.
you enjoy the game from the comfort of your own bedroom and a cup of
Enjoy
large
it.
coffee. And
Yeah.
we'll see you next week. Yeah, we'll see you next week. Come on, you R's.